And I've had the same thought about Back to the Future. In what day and age would you allow your teenage son to do so much hanging out with an old ass man?
Okay, so I didn't be the one to I didn't want to say this to sound like a fucking creep, but bro, as I was rewatching this, there
Uh-huh.
are so many weird tendencies here, where like Miyagi comes off as like a predator. Like, no, I'm being dead ass, bro. I mean, I'm telling my wife, I'm like, yo, I would never, ever. I mean, he like when he gets beat up, how he picks him up and then he takes him to his house and he's like rubbing him down. He's trying to give him something to drink. God knows what's in that drink. And I mean, like, there's so many different things that I was like, yo, this in 2020, this might be pushing it a little bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode. Stop it. Stop. That's too formal. You are now welcome to the Film Bros Dojo. We're here to discuss a retrospective on Karate Kid. God damn it, JB, are you ready to talk about one of the all-time best movies
I
ever?
am ready, hey son.
I'm so excited to talk about this movie, but before we do that, bro, we got to talk about just one news item because I'm really excited to jump into this. So, as we know, COVID cases have been on the rise again, spikes in certain areas of the country. So a couple of movies got pushed back even further. Tenet pushed back its release date another 2 weeks. So now it's back a month after its initial release. Wonder Woman, I think, pushed back again. There's Mulan pushed back again. So there's and there's now growing concern that the movie theaters may not be able to reopen to the capacity they thought they were going to. I believe AMC said that they thought by the end of July, 90% of their movie theaters are going to be open. Well, now when you have cities like Dallas that are having like 1,500 new cases in one day, that's going to definitely put a hampering in that. And kind of another thing that I want to talk about, another aspect I want to talk about this as well before I turn it over to you, JB, is AMC has already said that they may not survive this. This came from an executive at AMC that they'll be able to reopen, but they're not sure if they're going to be able to survive this and stay independent. So now, with the potential that that releases the movie theaters reopening may get pushed back even more, how do you dissect all of this? How do you feel about all this news to come out, JB?
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's kind of expected. I mean, we talked about it a little bit before in previous episodes that we've done. It doesn't come as a shock, really, and I kind of had a feeling Tenet would be pushed back. I think it's going to be pushed back even more. I think this is just a start.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the COVID cases are ramping up in some states. My state in particular, I'm in Florida. We had 5,000 cases the other day. Then a couple of days ago, we had 9,000, which broke the record for a single day in cases for anywhere in the country. So
That's crazy.
yeah, so it's the more and more those cases ramp up, the less and less we're going to see things open up because number one, people are not going to want to go out because they're just terrified, and number two,
Yep.
the movie theaters, they're not going to want to open because at the end of the day, it's a business. They have to get some revenue coming in as well. They don't want to open and then no one shows up, or worse yet, someone goes there, they get sick, and then that's horrible for publicity wise.
That's another good point as well, JB. I just I know economy and I know all the people who are thinking about that, and you should, but I really think we're going to get to a point to where they're going to say, look, until January 1st, just shut all this shit down.
You think? Yeah.
I mean, because look at it, like you have the basketball season reopening, and another podcast I
Well, God
listened to made a
knows.
great point. Is that while the players are forced to stay on that property for those 2 weeks, right? They're supposed to stay in that bubble. The Disneyland employees aren't going to be in that bubble. They're not forced to stay on the property. They're going to be able to go home when their shift's over and everything. So you have a chance to introduce COVID cases that way. And then Disneyland itself is also planning on reopening to the public around the same time. How, like, all of this, and you think it's going to stay safe? Like, you might as well let the players just do whatever the fuck they want to at that point. Like, and we've had a lot of players recently come out with saying that they were asymptomatic, but they did have were diagnosed with COVID. It's just, I don't know, man. I'm excited for the movie theaters reopen. I'm excited to try to get back to life as normal as we can, but at the same time, it just seems like we're rushing this, and more people are gonna get sick and ultimately lose their lives because we're just trying to reopen too soon.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and I mean, I don't really know what's gonna happen, and I mean, I've had this theory, and me and my wife have talked about this a lot. there's no rhyme or reason to this theory. It's just something made up. But from day one, when this happened, just in my head, I kept on saying, I think this is gonna die down a lot come October. Don't ask me why I said October. I have no idea why I said it, but from day one, back in like December, January, I kept on saying this is gonna be a big thing until October. So I'm holding firm to that. Again, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no conspiracy theory. It's just something that came to my head. If this happens, I'm gonna be playing the lotto the next day.
I guess we'll see, bro. I guess we'll see. But I don't want to bog it down too much. We're talking about COVID because that shit gets a lot of people depressed, and I am one of them if I talk about it too much. So let's go ahead and move in to talking about this amazing film. So we are here to start our retrospective. We're actually going to be doing Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3. Somebody actually messaged me and said that we're going to be doing the new Karate Kid also since Mr. Miyagi was in it. We haven't talked about that one, but I don't know. I guess we'll make that decision. As long as we don't do the one with Jaden Smith.
Well, I was about to say, isn't that technically? Oh, when you say the new Karate Kid, you mean the actual title of the movie? Okay, with Hilary Swank.
Actual movie. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know about it.
We'll think about it. We're definitely doing the first.
Absolutely.
Definitely. The remake, there's no way in hell you guys can get me to review that shit with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. I'm just letting you know right now. It's not fucking happening. Yeah. There we go. That's out of the picture. Don't ask about it. But enough of me talking about that bullshit ass movie. Let's discuss what we're here to discuss. So I think most of the time when we talk about old school movies, we always have to talk about the nostalgia, right? Like go back to like when we first seen it, some of our first memories. What's your earliest memory of the Karate Kid?
Man, it's definitely in New York, and I remember in New York, and for those of you who grew up in New York, you'll know what I'm talking about. In the 80s and 90s, Channel 11 in New York City was called, I think it's still called WPIX. And every Saturday, they would always have a movie at 8 p.m. And I think my first time ever seeing this movie was on a Saturday night. And they played Karate Kid Part 1. And obviously, growing up, I've seen it a million more times. It's on, it was on TBS. And like you see it like every couple weeks now.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, my memory, seeing the Karate Kid, and this came out before I was born, which I didn't even, like, it's been so ingrained in my life that I just assume that it's just been around since I've been around. But the first one, this one came out in 1984, which is actually 2 years before I was born. And it's funny that a movie that's older than me, I've literally can remember, like, the first time I watched it, at least I'm sure I probably was sitting on my dad's lap watching it when I was a baby and didn't know. But this is the movie that made me want to study karate. Like I have, a lot of people don't know this. I have 2 black belts in 2 different types of martial arts. But this is what started. This is what made me want to learn martial arts. And this is something that me and my father watched. And a lot of times when you hear me talk about movies, it's me and my dad because that was our thing that we bonded over. And I just remember burning the shit out of this VHS, bro. That's all I can remember. Like, it stayed in my room because there was no purpose in it going anywhere else in the house because I always watched this fucking movie.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I didn't see the uncut movie until, like, later on because it was always being shown on regular television. So, like, I think there's, like, 1 or 2 scenes where there might have been, like, some like, language. Not necessarily crazy language like the F word or anything like that, but I didn't see the actual full uncut until, like, years later. So when I would watch it on TV, there's some certain parts that they kind of black out or whatever. But yeah, it sucks. I can't remember the first time I watched it. I really don't. But I've seen it so many times, so who knows? It's all a blur at this point.
Yeah, it all starts blurring together when it's something that's throwback like this. But yeah, man. I mean, let's any other nostalgic moments that you want to point out before we get into the actual reviewing the movie itself?
I'm sure I have a bunch of nostalgic stuff, but as we go through, I'm sure different things will pop up at different points and stuff like that.
All right, so let's jump into the story of of Daniel and him. Like, okay, so this movie starts off in a weird way because, like, it's just like them driving off, right? Is that, like, that's the opening scene, and we don't really get to know, we don't know why they're driving off, what they're escaping from, or anything like that. And I think, like, it kind of puts you in the mindset of, like, him, because, like, he's going to an unknown place, and it's just, we're just jumped right into it. Like, what do you think about Daniel and his mom and everything, like, them just getting to where they're going in California?
Yeah, so that's like the opening scene. I mean, we don't find out until a little bit later in the movie, a few minutes later. the purpose of, I think they're moving from Jersey to California, and
Hmm.
also it's completely unrealistic that they drove from Jersey to California with that vehicle. There's no way. You're talking like 40 plus hours of driving probably. That I call
Yeah.
bullshit on that. Anyway, number two, apparently I think they moved to California because the mom was looking for better job opportunities, and
Hmm.
you kind of feel for Daniel because he kind of, and actually I thought about you in a way, and I'm going to tell you why in a second, because his mom moved without even talking to him, and he was kind of like pissed off, like, hey, you didn't even discuss with me about the move. I know you were, a military kid growing up. Your pops,
Hmm.
obviously, I'm sure, didn't come to you and be like, yeah, Cordero, do we have permission to go from A to B? So what was it like for you to move from place to place? Because you kind of relate to Daniel in this sense.
I mean, I think for me though, it's different in the sense that my parents didn't even have decision over it, right?
True.
Like they got assigned and stationed places, so we all found out as a family and all dealt with that and being in a new place together. And it wasn't like somebody just dictate. Well, other than the U.S. government dictating where we were moving. But I think also like we had a different like so we were in Italy for 8 years. So we didn't like some families moved every 4 years. We were lucky to get restationed a couple of places a couple of times. So I didn't move around as much as some military kids, but I did move around more than your average American. And it's just like I don't know. For me, it became like this sense of excitement, right? For me, like it was never like this thing where I hated it or anything. Like it just because I grew up in it, it was like I knew we were going to leave eventually, and I was always excited, and we always stepped up places like from Germany to Italy. It was like, yeah, who doesn't want to be in Italy? So I had a positive experience with that.
Exactly, exactly. Now, before we go deep
So
into the movie, I just have a couple numbers. Like, we kind of like to do this. Just quick numbers I wanted to go over. Starting with the budget. The budget for this film, this shit completely shocked me. But the budget for this film is 8 million, which is not a shocker. I mean, we're talking 1984 here, 83,
1984,
84.
yeah,
So that's good money.
yeah.
What they made is just ridiculous, $91 million. And I know that doesn't count also for like DVD sales, VHS sales, et cetera, et cetera. That's just box office. Almost like over 100 million, 100 times, what it, or not 100, but I should say 10 times what the budget was. What do you think about that? How crazy is that?
Bro. And you like you said that box office is just a small part. When you think about everything that the Karate Kid has meant
Merch.
merchandise wise and everything and VHS and DVD sales, like they have got to be one of the most profitable movies of all time when you think about that. And I just did a quick Google. So $8 million, the budget back
Right?
then, is still a less than $20 million budget
Which is like
now.
nothing.
So look at some of the movies that are made for $20 million, and if they would like that's incredible,
There's some
man.
movies right
Incredible.
now that are on $20 million budgets that don't make $91 million.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hell, yeah. So I mean, that's just crazy, man.
Yeah, and speaking about additional revenue, in 1985, also just by doing some research really quick, in 1985, this movie was actually the number one rental. Obviously, rentals don't mean
Yeah.
shit now, but back in those days, rentals were huge. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe for 1984, box office gross wise, I believe this was number 5 or 6 total.
Damn.
So it was one of the top movies of 1984, which kind of says, just look at the ratings and you'll see. I mean, IMDb, I think it was like a 7.2. Rotten Tomatoes, who shits on like every movie, gave it like an 88%
That's
Rotten
crazy,
Tomatoes
man.
score, which is just
That's crazy.
crazy.
I would really like to see how like some of the other movies that came out around this time, how they have aged. Like do you know off the top of your head? You said this was number 5 for that year,
Yeah,
right?
I'm gonna look it up in a second, but I did also want to ask you another question if you didn't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So because we're talking a lot about like rentals and how much money they've made over the course of, what is it, 30 plus years now.
Mhm.
Do you think, and we have this discussion a lot when we do retro movies, how has this, because I know me personally, I've seen a lot of movies that I loved back in the day, and I watch them now and I was like, what in the world was I thinking? For me, this movie has aged well. What about you?
For me, yeah, even though I didn't, this isn't a movie that I necessarily needed to rewatch because I feel
Yeah.
like I know at the back of my hand. I rewatched this, and other than like the cars, not having cell phones, things like that, this movie has aged great. And I think it's coming of age stories usually always do age pretty well. Like I think like when you look at this, The Breakfast Club, which I recently rewatched as well, is aged really good too. Like
Yes.
I think those movies, when you like capture, and it's very much of its time, it ages well, because even like looking at this and seeing the technology, you're automatically taken back to this time frame where you're not even thinking like, oh, why didn't Daniel's son pull out a cell phone, because they've established it very well. So like, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to bring up what you were asking about before. I'm just going to read off really quick the top 10 grossing films of 84.
Okay.
And honestly, I would say 8 out of these 10, you may disagree. 8 out of these 10s ended up being like really big films. Obviously, they all are big films because they're the top 10 grossing. But number one grossing film of 84 is Beverly Hills Cop, which was almost $250 million.
Definitely a classic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, over 220 million. I think is a classic. I don't know if you agree or disagree. This is the first one.
The original one? Absolutely.
Yes. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom,
That goes without
179
saying.
million.
You can stop there right there.
Gremlins, 153 million.
Absolutely too. I think that's
Yep. Then we have Karate Kid at 90 plus million. Police Academy, 81 million. And I think their series has been classic.
Yep.
Footloose is 80 million. Kevin Bacon, it's kind of Romancing the Stone was with Michael Douglas. We actually had that on Betamax. I don't know why. That's something for my mom and dad to answer. 76 million. Star Trek 3, I know there's a lot of Star Trek fans. That was 76 million. And Splash, which I enjoy because I'm a Tom Hanks fan, that did 69 million. So a few of those are gigantic names.
Never mind.
Were you gonna ask about Rocky?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Rocky came out this year. I believe Rocky came out in 83. Because while I'm reading this list, I'm like, where the hell is Rocky?
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's with me. I'm like, wait a second. We have to have something missing on this list. All right, and it's funny that like you said, most of those movies that you mentioned are didn't Terminator come out in 84 too? I'm surprised that wasn't in the top 10.
I'm gonna check it in a second. Yeah, there was no Rocky movie, and Terminator 1, right?
Yeah.
Terminator 1 came out in 84. Wow. Let's see what the that's crazy. Let's see what the gross was. Because it wasn't in the top 10, which is
that's crazy.
78 million. But
wow.
I mean, those things.
Wait a second. Terminator grossed less than the Karate Kid the year that it came out.
Bro, it grows less than Splash.
That's wild, man. And Terminator's it has more sequels than any other movie on this list.
No, hold up. Something is weird. How much did I said how much? 74?
Yeah.
You know what? And I know we're diverging here, but hey, we're fucking film fanatics. So, because actually they made Terminator made more than Splash. However, I'm curious to see, and you can just keep talking. The list that I gave just now of the top 10, that's for domestic.
Oh, okay.
Terminator did 78 worldwide.
It's only 78 worldwide?
Yeah, and those films that I listed, those were all. So let's see. They did only 38 million domestic Terminator 1.
Wow. What? That is mind-boggling, bro. I know, and we're gonna try to get it back on Karate Kid, but
we will. But
that's just when you think about it, that's crazy, because Terminator is such like in the zeitgeist of films, like, in the fact that Karate Kid is too, but you just wouldn't think like the longevity of like, hell, we just got a Terminator sequel last year, so like, that's just wild to me, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but Terminator also held up as well. So
that's true. It did hold up as well. So let's get back into the story of Daniel-san. But all right, so this movie, they get into they move to California, and within the first day, basically, he goes to the beach. He meets Allie, who, surprisingly enough, and I had never clicked in this till I'm rewatching it, she also played Clark Kent's mother in Smallville, which is just crazy to me. But
I never seen Smallville, but I've seen her in she was in Leaving Las Vegas, Nick Cage movie, and she's been in a couple things. I actually had a crush on her when I was younger.
Oh yeah, I mean she was beautiful.
Yeah.
But he meets her at the beach, impresses her with some soccer moves, listens to some songs, and immediately the shit hits the fan. I love how they really jump into this plot very early on, and for a kid who's already displaced to get their ass beat like the first 2 days that you're there is fucking amazing. What did you think about that part of it?
Yeah, so yeah, I love how they kind of jumped into it. There was no like building up or whatever. He
Mhm.
meets her on the beach, and he found a friend, and they're playing soccer, and then that's when you kind of first meet Cobra Kai as well, and he gets into the beef with them. Clearly, he started
Mhm.
the issue. Um, in my opinion, I know we've talked about this in the past from other episodes and stuff like that. I feel Daniel brought all this shit upon himself, and there's even been like psychologists that came out and did their own theories. I mean, if we break it down, they're at the beach. Okay, Johnny and Elizabeth Shue's character. What was her name again in the film?
Allie. Yeah.
Allie. Allie and Johnny are having an argument. They've broken up. Daniel inputs himself in the situation. Why, I don't know. He should have minded his business. He inputs himself in the situation. They get into an argument, and instead of walking away, he actually goes and attacks.
He does strike first.
First?
Yeah, he does strike first.
Yeah. I'm not even talking about physically. He just rushes towards him. So what happens? Johnny, in what I feel is nothing wrong, defends himself. He trips him. After he gets Daniel gets up, Johnny knocks him down. Again, not punching him, just throwing him to the floor. What does Daniel do? He gets up and punches him. Then tries to be a bitch. He's like, okay, we're even. How is that even? He tripped you and you punched him. Clearly, he's the bully here.
Okay, let's phrase this. And we've had this not argument. We've had this conversation in the WWP in chat, which was the first time somebody actually brought it up to me. And then I researched like it on YouTube, and like there are a lot of people who agree with you. Now, Johnny wasn't being completely like. The girl said he didn't want to talk. He took her radio to force her to talk.
Yes.
Now, Danny trying to be a gentleman and defender was like, hey man, like now I don't think he should have stayed out of it. I think he could have tried to like a man should defend a woman, right? But at the same time, he did get physical first. You can't deny that at all. He did escalate the situation because Johnny, seemingly knowing he could beat Danny's ass, was just like, look, kid, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Like, I'm just going to keep pushing you down. But I feel like Danny being new.
Johnny tried to walk away too.
And the funny thing is that I agree with people saying that Johnny at this point isn't an outright villain because he's not. He's not. Like in this situation, he was a dick. He was very much a dick. But when it came to his interaction with Danny, he was trying to defend himself. Now he does things to be more antagonistic as the movie goes on. But in this initial interaction between the two, I call it a wash. They both were in the wrong in different ways. Like to say that Danny should have just stayed out of it, I don't agree with because a woman was involved. But at the same time, you can see where Johnny was trying his best to not kick this kid's ass. Like,
so let's go into the next issue. You want to continue delving into, it, or you want to go as it comes?
No, let's go.
Okay. The next scene that I can remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it's the soccer tryouts.
Yes.
It's the soccer tryouts. I forget the kid's name. Slides and hits him. Don't get me wrong, he slid on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, his first reaction is violence. Threw the kid on the floor, punched him. The kid never punched him.
That is true.
and then the teacher, the coach is like, yo, get out of here. And Daniel, with all his nerve and attitude, says, this school sucks. Bro, this is day one, probably the first period of the day. Day one, the first day of school, and you're already saying this school sucks? This kid got an attitude issue, bro.
He had a chip on his shoulder. Like what? And we still don't know exactly what displaced him. We know that to find better employment, but we don't know what his life was like before he came to California and what caused that chip on his shoulder. But again, I can't disagree with you there. He did punch the kid in the face first. Like I get being tripped and I get shoving at that point back and forth, but it's like Danny was just like, you know what, fuck it, and just punched the kid in his face. And it was like, all right, he's lucky he only got away with saying he couldn't make the team because you get suspended from school, expelled if not anything else. Like,
right. And then moving forward, it's the night of the dance, the costume dance.
Wait, because before the night of the dance,
yes,
before the night of the dance is when he went into the karate dojo. He saw that Johnny was basically leading class. He kind of smirked at him. He left to go eat dinner with his parents. Another kid from the class saw Danny in there eating with him, and then that was the same night they made him go overboard with his bike. So let's not jump into the dance first, because before the dance is the time.
Excuse me. They never made him go over. It's not their fault he was an idiot and he can't drive his bicycle.
No, bro. They they guided him off, bro. They had people in front of him and on the side of him. That's not fair. That's not fair, bro.
I mean, yeah, fine. But at this point, he's been antagonized to the point where he's like, okay, it's my turn now to do a little bit of antagonizing.
Okay, does that make it better? Does that make it
No,
better?
absolutely
Okay.
not.
So I'm saying,
but I understand where he's coming from.
So if we're being fair and having a tally mark here,
It's washed at this point.
It's well, no, because I still. Okay, so what we gave the beach was kind of a wash. Did we give that a wash? We gave that a wash.
Right.
Danny punching the kid in the face was completely on Danny. Even though he got tripped, he didn't have to escalate it to a punch. And then them over. Okay, so yeah, it's a wash.
Okay, so let's go to the next scene. It's a wash now.
Okay.
The next scene is the costume party. Halloween. My man Johnny is just rolling a blunt, minding his own business. This is his Walkman. But again, Daniel antagonizes the situation, puts the hose inside, sprays him. Not only that, he messes with him, number one. Number two, he gives Ali a weapon to trip them. That's assault in any state. Okay. Number three, he causes a damn traffic accident, 2, 3, 4 car pileup. So, again, to me, this is all on Daniel. And he probably ruined the blunt in the middle of all that.
The innocent bystander. The blunt in all of this is the innocent bystander. How dare you ruin good weed? And they're in California, so it was probably some really good weed. How dare
Blunt lives matter, bro.
Okay. So what's the next one that we got?
So that's on Daniel, correct?
That's on Daniel. So now we're 3-2.
Yeah, and then they beat the shit out of him. But also, I don't find that on them because that's revenge.
No, but if we're keeping the same energy, as the young people say, they didn't have to escalate to physical violence. Like, you can play a practical joke on somebody without it having to escalate to physical violence.
I know, but at this point, Johnny's been antagonized so much. There's only so much a human being can take. Then what happens after that? Daniel gets an adult to assault and abuse these kids. This man is their senior. Where's child abuse? I want to know how come no one called the.
You know what's funny?
Child abuse people.
And watching, because when you're a kid and you see this, you're like, oh, he's defending Daniel. It makes more sense. He's defending Danny.
Kids?
But now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, like, I have kids, and if a grown man beat my son's ass, I'm shooting you. Like, I'm showing up.
Also, I just want to say really quick on this scene, and I see this movie 1,000 times, didn't realize until the watch through this time. When Mr. Miyagi is beating the shit out of Johnny, his part of the scene goes like this. Johnny stances up, he punches him in the stomach, and then he does an arm drag, and he chops him in the stomach. But in the next scene, Johnny has a black eye. Miyagi never hit him in the face, so I don't know if that was a goof or what.
Bad editing. I'm sure there was a take of that where he like elbowed him in the face or something.
Okay, that makes sense. So anyway, as you can see now not only has Daniel antagonized this guy, now Johnny's being abused, physically abused. And then on top of all of that, Daniel, he got Miyagi to do his dirty work. Then the next scene, he gets Miyagi to do more dirty work. Johnny's minding his business at Cobra Kai, doing his thing, trying to release energy. Daniel brings his thug, Mr. Miyagi, with him.
Wait, we're calling Mr. Miyagi a thug now, bro?
Yes, he brings his thug, his goon, Mr. Miyagi, to Cobra Kai to challenge him. Well, I mean, what is that?
Would you not have done the same thing?
No, I wouldn't have went on his turf and challenged him. I'm not some thug. What is this, Blood versus Crips?
Bro, that's some bullshit. Because you're an asshole. You would definitely.
I don't know, man. If you want to support that thug life, that's on you, bro.
Hey, thug life all day, every day. This is coming from the same person who. Never mind, because I won't. I told you the story of the time my daughter two-pieced a guy up at a church lock-in, right?
No, you never told me that.
Oh my God! So again, we're sidetracked, but this is the Film Bros. We're brothers, so we talk about real life. So your niece Amaya, there was a church like lock-in or whatnot overnight, and keep in mind, I've taught her how to fight, like to defend herself. Right. So, but she has this mindset where if anybody pisses her off or does anything that she can say, she's now self-defending herself. She pieces. So there was this kid, like they were playing like some game, and he knocked her over, And so the guy who was like the people who were watching the kids overnight says that before he could react to her falling down, she was back up and gave the dude like a 3-piece combo, and he was on the ground.
Damn. What did the guy do? What did the adult
He said
do?
he sent them to different parts of the church. Like one was downstairs, one was upstairs the rest of the night or whatnot. But Amaya is bro. When I tell you, when it comes to fighting, she is no fucking joke, man. Like she hits me sometimes play fighting. I'm like, God damn, what the fuck? Why'd you hit me so hard? Yeah.
Damn, she got like that dim mock from Bloodsport.
Okay, but that's the soundtrack about my life. Listen, I'm a good parent. I promise to God I am. She just doesn't take no shit. But let's keep it going.
She's gonna be the next Miyagi. She gonna be telling her daughter like, "Yo, kill him.
Take his legs."
Don't be surprised if your granddaughter's wearing skeleton costumes and shit.
Oh, shit, man, that's hilarious, bro. That's hilarious, man.
Yeah. So as you can see, there's numerous things here, and we can go on and on of how, if at least Johnny is not the victim, they're both bullies or victims.
Antagonistic towards one each other. Yeah, for sure. That's crazy, man. And it's so funny when you when like now that you go into it from a different perspective, you can definitely see. And this is, I know we've been making fun of this and jokes, but you can, and then and we're reviewing the first 2 seasons of Cobra Kai too. That's kind of how we're going to end this retrospective, because I feel like that brings the story all together. But when you add in Cobra Kai and Johnny telling his side of the story, and then with us looking at it like this, like you can really see an aspect of this where they could tell this, like they could have done Karate Kid 1.5 from the point of view of Johnny, and Danny would have been the antagonist.
Exactly, they could do it, and maybe with all these psychologists coming up on light and saying like some of the stuff that they said, maybe that gave the idea to make later make Cobra Kai, because Cobra Kai is more Johnny's perspective and how his life turned after all that and whatever. But yeah, I mean that's my case on Johnny. Tune into when we do the Rocky retrospect where I prove how Ivan Drago was the real victim in Rocky 4.
Are you serious?
100%.
Oh God! Now we're gonna have to do a Rocky retrospective. Oh man. So okay. So all of this happens, and throughout of this, we get character building, right? We get Danny and Allie, more of Johnny, and then we get into the training montage. We've always talked about our '80s training montages, bro.
Yes.
This has got to be one of the best ones ever, right, man?
You're talking specifically the training montages,
the training montage specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
The training montages are really good. I like the one in the beach. There's a couple good ones, but later on we're going to talk about the fight montage, which to me is probably one of the top 2 montages of any 80s movie. But we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, the training montages specifically were pretty good. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the characters themselves. I wanted to get your take on not every character, but just the main ones: Miyagi, Daniel, Kreese, and Johnny and Allie.
Well, here's my thing.
Yeah.
And I've had the same thought about Back to the Future. In what day and age would you allow your teenage son to do so much hanging out with an old ass man?
Okay, so I didn't want to say this to sound like a fucking creep, but bro, as I was rewatching this, there are so many weird tendencies here, where like Miyagi comes off as like a predator, like. No, I'm being dead ass, bro. I'm telling my wife, I'm like, yo, I would never, ever. I mean, like when he gets beat up, he picks him up and then he takes him to his house and he's like rubbing him down. He's trying to give him something to drink. God knows what's in that drink. And I mean, like, there's so many different things that I was like, yo, this in 2020, this might be pushing it a little bit. Bro, you could get away with it in 84.
And it's even worse in Back to the Future because we'll talk. I know we reviewed that movie before, but we may eventually do a retrospective on it and talk about it more in depth. But seriously, like, I wouldn't say predator tendencies, but it's definitely some shit that'll make you as a parent question some things because, like, we're sitting here watching this, right? And then, like even Miyagi, like making him do the wax on, wax off and painting and stuff and, like, leaving him for hours. Like, he started off painting the damn, what's the word? The fence in the daytime. It was at night. Like, who has not checked on their kid that long? Like, you allow your kid to stay with another grown-ass old man for apparently at least 6 hours at a time without checking on them? That's weird, bro.
let's not. I don't want to fast forward too much, but let's just really quick talk about Mrs. LaRusso.
Okay.
First of all, yes, number one, you're allowing your child to spend so much time with this guy. This is the maintenance man. It's not like some family member. It's a maintenance guy where you live. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, after only knowing Daniel for X amount of time, I mean, if you look at the timeline, they've probably known each other from the time they met to the time of the the time of the tournament. We're talking, I would say, 2 months. So you telling me that your son has met the maintenance guy, and in 2 months they're this close? Let's fast forward to Karate Kid Part 2. Now you let your son fly all the way to freaking Okinawa with this guy he's only known for 2 months. And then let's fast forward to Part 3. Now you let your son stay with this guy forever as you decide to like just say, okay, whatever. Bad parenting, bro. Just bad parenting.
Bro, and this is gonna take this conversation to a whole nother level. Like, maybe that's why Danny was so upset. Maybe she like sex trafficked Danny.
You So Miyagi was the pimp?
No, I'm not saying to Miyagi. I'm saying before maybe that's why they had to move to California.
Yeah, but if she was sex trafficking, she could have drove a better car, bro.
I mean, not everybody is good and they pimping, bro. Like, that's all.
Shit, pimping ain't easy as it goes.
But real talk though, like, yeah, I mean, it definitely is weird, man, when you think about it. Like, maybe she just didn't want Danny low key, but yeah.
Yo, that could be it for real, yo.
I mean, and maybe that's why he's so angry. Maybe this whole time she just has not wanted him. Wanted to be a parent.
Looking for that dick, because I think didn't Daniel's dad die? I think we learned that in part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his dad. Yeah, his dad did die. So yeah, he was probably trying. She's probably trying that big stroke.
All right, let's move on. We've talked about Mrs. LaRusso, Mr. Miyagi. I think we talked like. I get it, like the characterization of the old wise Asian man, and we get that in a lot of movies, especially in the 70s and 80s. But I think the lessons that he did taught, as creepy as like some of them is with the painting and stuff, like he really did teach calm Danny down and help him get centered, right? And that's like that. You know, Danny didn't have a father figure, so we kind of understand like why he attached himself to Miyagi so early on. And you know, Mr. Miyagi is one of the great characters that people you can say Mr. Miyagi and people know exactly what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, can I tell a quick story?
Sure.
So, I don't know, because you grew up in so many different fucking countries. I don't know how much of this you watch. We're about the same age, but when you were growing up, did you ever watch Happy Days?
Yeah, of course.
So for those who don't remember, Miyagi, whose real name is Pat Morita, he was actually on Happy Days for a while. I don't know how many seasons, but the diner they used to hang out with, which is called Arnold's, he was Arnold. So I just want to tell the quick story. And I remember seeing this interview, and if I'm not mistaken, it may be on YouTube, but I don't know if it's still on. I saw it years ago. He was telling the story of how he got casted for Mr. Miyagi. And at the time, for those who don't know, Jerry Weintraub, who's this, big iconic producer, was the one who produced this movie. He was looking for a Mr. Miyagi, and Pat Morita was interested in the role, and he was like, no, you're not even going to audition, because he's a comedian. He was always a comedian, and you can see some of that in this movie, because Mr. Miyagi has some funny ass lines in this role, and he made it funny because in reality Pat Morita is a comedian. So Jerry Weintraub was like, I don't even want you reading for this, because we're looking for like a serious character, not like some comedian. Mm-hmm. So the name of the director is John Avildsen, if I'm not mistaken. John Avildsen told him like, hey, I want you to come in and read for the part. So he came in, Pat Morita came in and read for the part. When he came in and read for the part, he was like, okay, thank you. In Pat Morita's head, he's like, I probably don't got this role. So he was leaving. Avildsen said, hey, don't you want to take the script just in case? And he's like, okay, he'll take it. Weintraub was not having it. He did not want Pat Morita because of his background. One day they're in a meeting, and Avildsen decides, you know what? I'm going to play the tape, the casting tape. He plays it, and Weintraub is like, yo, who's that? That's the guy I won. He's like, yeah, that's the guy you didn't want to read. They end up, making a long story short, they bring in Pat Morita 5 more times to read. And at the end of the 5th one, Jerry Weintraub is like, Pat, I just really want to apologize. I almost made the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. You have the part. You're Mr. Miyagi. And that's how he got the role. And not only was this an iconic role, he actually got nominated for an Oscar for this role too.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, shouts out. Shouts. That's deep, man. Next one. I guess since we talked about Miyagi, let's talk about Kreese.
Yes.
What's your
Um,
opinion on John Kreese?
I think he was perfect. This is just a fun fact. Chuck Norris actually was who they wanted to play this character, but Chuck Norris didn't want. He turned it down because he didn't want a martial art teacher to come off as like a bad guy. So
Mm.
that's why he turned it down. But I enjoyed Kreese in this movie. He's an asshole, and we later saw him in Part 3 as an asshole. We later see him in Cobra Kai as an asshole. So he plays that asshole character perfectly. What did you think about him though?
I mean, he played the part perfectly, like you said, to be an asshole, to kind of be the yin to Miyagi's yang, like as Miyagi's teaching patience and everything. Kreese teaches aggression, like snuffing them out and everything, like that. So I like the balance between those two characters a lot, and I think that I don't really like going back around and just thinking about people that time. Like I don't think Chuck Norris could even like Chuck Norris is great. Don't get me wrong, but Chuck Norris, I don't think could have nailed in that asshole as much as Kreese did.
I agree with you a
Yeah.
1000%. I feel like Kreese just has like that asshole look. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think Chuck
Oh,
Norris has that look.
yeah, the look too, like just the facial reactions that he had. So even like Miyagi coming in there and the kid, like everything about it was perfect for what he did. Now, Cobra Kai, I. You could tell he hadn't acted in a while when he came back to Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But in just this and what we're reviewing today, the original Karate Kid, he was great.
Do you think there was a missed opportunity? And I can see this going both ways. Do you think there's a missed opportunity with them not having Miyagi and Kreese actually get physical, even if it's like a quick 30 seconds with each other?
I think so, especially because we see Miyagi beat up some kids, like right, and
Yeah.
I get it. He beat up like 4 or 5 of them, which makes him like. But it would have been nice to see him and Miyagi tussle a little bit.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that definitely. But yeah, back to your original thing though. I think Kreese was definitely perfect. I mean, all these people, and I know it's so easy to say this, and we say this probably every single time. It's so hard to see any of these characters played by somebody else. Like Daniel LaRusso, they originally wanted Charlie Sheen, who turned on the role, and Sean Penn, who turned on the role. Can
Oh
you
my god, that would have been
imagine?
fucking horrible.
Yeah, like I think Ralph Macchio was the perfect guy, and let as a matter of fact, now that I think about it, Ralph Macchio was probably the biggest actor in this movie because Pat Morita was just a small time guy at this point. Ralph Macchio is coming off of Outsiders, which is freaking phenomenal,
Hmm.
and he was one of the stars of Outsiders. So I can't see Charlie Sheen playing this role or Sean Penn, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Charlie Sheen's great, especially in like comedic roles. But
Sure.
I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him doing this. So,
Yeah, yeah, same likewise.
are you surprised that Ralph didn't have like a better career? Because when you think, I mean, he was in a lot of stuff as a kid. The only thing that really stands out to me that he did as an adult, other than Cobra Kai, was My Cousin Vinny.
Which
That's
is
the only thing that I can
freaking
remember him from
hilarious.
as an adult. Like I just feel like, and I'm not gonna act like he was like amazing in any roles, but like you would just think like maybe some like Home Alone type roles he would have got cat. But then again, he was older by then, so like I don't know, man. I'm just surprised he wasn't in more than what he was in when he was still a kid.
Also, keep in mind, how old do you think he was when he did this movie?
This came out in '84.
4. Yeah.
Even though I know he's supposed to be like what 16 or
Right.
17,
It's supposed to be 16.
it wouldn't surprise me if he was like 20.
He was 22.
Why he was 22 when he did
Yeah.
this? Oh
He
well,
was
that makes
22.
sense then. Like he was very on the tail end of being cast as a kid then, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to look at his filmography here. So the movie came out in 84. He did like some shit I've never heard about in between Karate Kid 1 and 2, and then Karate Kid 3, and then he did My Cousin Vinny. And after that, like, I mean, Naked and You, I don't even know any of these. Popcorn Shrimp, what the hell is that? Beer League? I don't know any of this shit.
See,
Yeah, I don't know any of that. I mean, and he was in a bunch of TV roles too, which I in short things. But yeah, I don't know what the hell happened to his career.
yeah, that's the got better agent man, or maybe you know what though some
That's what it
honestly
was.
some people, especially when they're kids and they get into these franchises very early, some of them do like they just lose interest. Like he jumped right into a franchise that was built around him. And I believe like all the sequels were like every 2 years, which means if they were released every 2 years apart, he probably only had a break of like 6 months between filming each one of those.
Yeah, because I mean, 84, 86, and 89.
So
You know, that's the reason. And then in 92, he had My Cousin Vinny. Those are like his 4 biggest movies. But, you know, life is a funny thing because after that, he kind of went non-existent. And look, he's right back in the spotlight now because Cobra Kai, I mean, Cobra Kai has a huge following. We'll get into Cobra Kai, you know, in a few weeks, but they have a huge following. So his career is sort of revitalized.
and it's funny that Cobra Kai has such a huge following and it's streaming on YouTube for now. Like, could you imagine if it was on a bigger platform like Netflix? Could you just imagine
I don't know how accurate this is, but well, I know I read something about Hulu getting it, but just recently, like maybe a week ago, I saw someone post something about Netflix acquiring it. I know Hulu acquired it. I read that specifically. I'm not sure if Netflix got it now or it's I really don't know, but yeah, it's no longer on YouTube TV.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, they do have some language on YouTube, but even if it was, I just read it. Netflix acquired the first 2 seasons and will release season 3. Okay. So it's actually coming to Netflix, not Hulu.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess it must have changed at some point. That's
huge.
Good though. I'm glad.
It's going to be huge for them. But I mean, I don't know, man. Like it's crazy. Like you said, how life works. How like this role has. It's this role. Like he's mainly known for this role, and this is his role, and it's dope that he's able to continue that. I'm glad that when Cobra Kai was first announced, bro, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was the stupidest idea ever. It took me until like it was like a few episodes released, and then I watched like the first 3 all back to back, and I was like, I was so fucking wrong about this, man.
Yeah, originally when I heard the idea, I was happy initially that Karate Kid was coming back. But then when I read the synopsis, like this is from Johnny's perspective, I'm like, what? Who gives a shit about Johnny? Like we want Daniel, and like did Daniel and Ali get back together, or like you know we want that. And then like you said, like I think after I saw like the second or third episode, I was like, psh, and it was like it's one of my favorite shows currently at the moment, and it was the only reason why I kept YouTube TV to watch that, and I no longer have YouTube TV, but yeah, I think it was pretty good. And like you said, Ralph Macchio was big in Karate Kid. This is here's a thing. How many scenes in Karate Kid, the one we're reviewing right now, how many scenes does not include Ralph Macchio?
It can't be more than 2, bro. If even that.
0. He's in every single scene in the movie.
Crazy,
every one of them. So that just goes to show you. I do think, while he's a star, I do think that it's shared with Mr. Miyagi though, because you got to give that dude his credit, man. Mr. Miyagi helped make this film. For me, I like Mr. Miyagi more than I like Daniel. That's just me personally.
Too, for sure. But let's get into what people want to hear us talk about.
Yes,
the fucking tournament. We got to get into it, bro.
So, also, let me just also make another point about Daniel being an asshole. He entered this tournament. He doesn't even know the rules. Do you know you could physically hurt somebody without even knowing the rules? He entered a tournament that he didn't even know the rules on. Not only that, Miyagi stole the black belts from the guys. That's theft. But yeah, everyone's gonna overlook that because he's a nice old man. But whatever. But yeah, the tournament was done really well. Great choreography. I know the choreography had a lot to do with the referee in those matches. He's actually a student of Chuck Norris in real life. He was. So he helped choreograph that. And also the guy who Johnny fought in the semifinals. I don't remember what his last name was. I think it was Vidal. I think his name was Vidal, his last name. He's the only other person that looked like he knew what he was doing when it comes to like martial arts. He also helped choreograph that whole tournament. And can we please talk about the montage, which I think is probably outside of Rocky montages, it's the best montage in any 80s film, period. You're the best montage.
This montage, I would have to like, Rocky montages are a different breed and they're more physical for sure.
Sure.
But this is, if it's not the best, it's definitely the most memorable for me. It was just, and it's funny how much I remember it, like going through and rewatching it. I knew what was coming beforehand, and I think that speaks to how great the montages are. And when you can convey, like the whole point of montages, right, are to convey a lot of story in a condensed period of time.
Yes.
And this does that excellently. It execute like some montages become like this comedic thing or like this thing that you just use to fast forward thing. Like this is if you're gonna teach someone how to properly execute a montage, this is one of the scenes that I'll definitely show them outside of the Rocky series.
Yeah, I mean, for me, montage, like you said, they're supposed to tell a story, and I think this told a great story. And there were some things where it was just for me, it was just great piece of acting. I mean, basically, what you see in this first of all, "You're the Best." I mean, that song is first of all the soundtrack for a lot of people may not know this, but I'm a huge fan of 80s pop music, and the soundtrack for this film is outstanding. I mean, you have "You're the Best," you have "Cruel Summer." There's a bunch of different songs. Actually, fun fact again, "You're the Best" was supposed to be the theme song for Rocky 3, and they turned it down for "Eye of the Tiger." So it was supposed to be for Rocky 3, but they turned it down. And at any rate, I just love the way the montage was done. It told the story of Daniel's uphill battle with going through Cobra Kai. Going through each member one by one, going through all the different members of Cobra Kai, leading up to Johnny. And also, there was this one scene that is so small, but I'm not really sure why I enjoyed it so much. And it was during the point where Johnny was fighting. I mean, not Johnny, but Daniel was fighting Dutch, the blonde-haired kid, who looks like he's 40. And at one point, he gets hit in the face, and they do a zoom-in close-up of Mr. Miyagi. And Mr. Miyagi gives that look like, "Yo, you got this." And obviously Daniel wins a fight, but it was just a small little thing that I always love it when they show that montage of that zoom in. I just thought it was a nice piece of cinematography.
And it's great. Just the way that it's shot, and it's stayed in our memory for fucking decades, bro. Part of the reason why people love this movie is that, and they do a great job in building to it. But I think they do such a good job at telling the story even before the tournament that you kind of it's coming, right? Because they do it. It's about like 30 or 40 minutes into the movie. Movie's over 2 hours that Mr. Miyagi challenges them and say they'll meet at the tournament. But they tell so much between there that while the tournament is something off here we know we're going to get to, you never are like, let's just hurry up and get to the tournament. When is the tournament happening? Because they tell a great story leading up to it.
I absolutely agree. I want to kind of rewind, and obviously here on Film Freaks we jump around all the time, but there's one kind of important scene we didn't talk about, but it kind of showed some acting chops from Pat Morita, Miss Miyagi, and also a lot of the producers and the director has gone out to say this scene was the reason why he got nominated for the Oscar. Can you talk about the scene where he's drunk and Daniel comes in, and kind of this is the scene where you see like they have like that a different bond. It's not just student teacher. It's more like father son, where he's he's drunk. Can you talk a little bit about that scene and what your thoughts were?
I mean, that seems powerful because it's like Mr. Miyagi up until that point has been seen as almost like this perfect person, right? And that's when we start getting in. We get some of it more in Karate Kid. Is it 2 or 3 where we get more of
Miyagi's of his backstory?
Yeah, and so but that's the first peep into it. And when you see Danny, like how he goes into this nurturing mode for this person that he really honestly cares about, it makes me believe even more that he's been through some shit with his mom, because where do you learn how to help somebody deal with the hangover? By seeing them. So I think he's dealt with some shit. But yeah, it makes you automatically realize that the bond between them, like you said, it isn't just student teacher. It's that he has become Danny's father in a way. That's when it turns into, he's not just looking out for Danny. He's not just mentoring Danny. This is now Danny's father for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and you said something that I didn't really think about, but that's a great point. Like, Miyagi to this point is sort of like this perfect dude, and this is kind of his first flaw. Not that there's anything wrong with what he did. I mean, he had a drink, he got a little drunk, whatever. But this is kind of his first flaw, and he tells the backstory of like, oh, he had a wife, and I believe she was pregnant at the time. I don't remember, and they died during the whole war. Because that was around Vietnam times, and he lost a wife and whatever. And then he came over to United States or whatever. So it was cool to learn it. But yeah, it was definitely an impactful scene, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Something that I want to point out. I'll point it out at the end. Don't worry. Let's go back into it. So are we still in?
What other scenes can we talk to? Are there any scenes before the tournament that stick out to you? How about the social, and I mean, I didn't even think about it until now. How about the social dynamic? Because remember, Ali's like rich, ritzy, and Daniel comes from like Reseda, which is like, it's, sort of middle class, the lower middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Them projecting that into this film, do you think that played a factor into anything, or is that just a typical thing?
I think that's just there for people who pay attention to it. I don't think it really played into much. You?
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. I think it was just put in the film just to put in the film because, you know, he's on the other side of the tracks and she's ritzy, and there needs to be some sort of conflict there, because if they're both like they both have money, or they're both not wealthy or whatever, then there's no conflict there. So, and Johnny, as we know, he is from her neck of the woods, so obviously there's that conflict there as well.
Okay. All right. What else do you want to talk about with the tournament?
What about the tournament?
Or anything leading up to, whatever you want to do.
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think about the training styles and I mean, I would have to argue and say the most notable line from this film, where you hear all the time, number one would probably be wax on, wax off.
Yeah.
And number two would probably be suit to leg. Those are the two lines you hear and see all the time.
Yeah.
But what about the training techniques of Miyagi? By the way, that yellow card that he waxed, the production team actually ended up gifting Ralph Macchio it after the movie was done. But what do you think about the whole training techniques?
I mean, it highlighted the different teaching styles, right? And I think that's what it was supposed to be. But I mean, I don't really have much to say about the training techniques themselves. They were cool to see. It was a great way to like spend some time leading up to it. But I mean, what did you expect leading up to that? Like, you expected their training to be completely different. So.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember the first time I watched it, though. I don't know if maybe you caught on to what was happening. Mm-hmm. I actually thought he was just using him to do all this shit. Yeah. I knew eventually he would train him, obviously. Yeah. But I thought he was trying to like break him into like humbling himself, is what I originally thought.
Yeah, me too. I think it was, and I kind of said it earlier, like it was to calm him down. Like Danny at that point had been so aggressive, so like fed up, and had that chip on his shoulder that the training, I thought, before we knew what and how it built him as a martial artist and strengthened certain parts of his body, I really just thought it was look, you're a hothead right now. If I was to teach you karate right now, you would go and punch somebody the first time I teach you how to throw a punch. And by doing this and teaching them these seemingly mundane things, it was like, all right, you just gotta calm yourself and humble yourself. But once it all comes together and we figure out the purpose behind all those tasks that he had him do, it was like, damn, that's smart. That's and deep as shit.
Gotcha. What was your favorite fight in the tournament? And don't give the easy answer and say Johnny versus Daniel.
No. Shit. Because that is the easy answer. I mean, I think that's the best, like story-wise, that's what we're trying to get up to.
But other than that, let's say.
I don't know, man. What was yours?
I can't say if it was the best, but the one I enjoyed, it was, I don't even know, not Dutch and not Johnny and not the kid that kicks him in the leg. The other guy. I don't know what the other guy's name is.
Is that the one who was Steve McQueen's son?
No, Steve McQueen's son is Dutch.
Okay.
He's the guy with the blonde hair that looks like he's 40.
Okay.
Okay, so there's him, there's Johnny, and then there's the kid that got disqualified because he kicked him in the leg. Not any of those guys. It's the other guy. This is the guy that actually, I know we're fast forwarding, but unfortunately he died a couple months ago in real life. He was on Cobra Kai and he had cancer in Cobra Kai. He actually had cancer in real life and also on the show, and unfortunately he passed away. But anyway, his character in Karate Kid 1 was such a dick. He was the one that he talked more than Johnny, and he was the one that was in the background during the fight. Like, yeah, put him in a body bag, Johnny. And when he was the first guy that of the main Cobra Kai characters that Daniel beat. But yeah, I think I enjoyed that just because Daniel beat him.
That makes sense. They're all good in their different ways, right?
Right.
Yeah. One thing that I guess we need to wait to talk about, because I want to talk about the crane kick, because I know you have some shit to say about the crane kick.
So let's talk about leading up to the crane kick. Let's talk about Daniel gets kicked in the leg. Mm-hmm. They take him in the back. Miyagi fondles him a little bit and makes him feel better. What are your thoughts on any of that?
My thing is, all right, so you're teaching this kid to suppress pain, right?
Right.
Well, now what if he goes out there and fucks himself up even worse?
Yeah. What if he had like a torn something?
That has to be illegal too. That has to be illegal. We're calling foul on that shit. But
again, bad parenting, because Miyagi's being a coach or a trainer or whatever, sensei. His mom is supposed to be like, yo, you're done. His mom doesn't even give a shit.
His mom doesn't like. We knew that early on, bro. She does not care. His
He
mom does
been
not give a shit.
cash that trafficking check.
Yeah. What did you think about it though?
About what, the touch?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's what it was. No, I thought it was cool, and then we kind of see it later on in Karate Kid 3. We saw it earlier in the film when his shoulder was screwed up and he did it. So I thought that was cool.
There's a lot of foreshadowing because there's actually a scene in which you can see the shower curtain costume that he wears. It's in the background, like everything's there. So
I've
they
seen
did
this
a lot
movie
of foreshadowing on this
100 million times, and this see-through was the first time I realized that the shower curtain was in the back in the scene before. I never realized that until. That's why, even though you watch these movies 1,000 times, sometimes you'll watch it and notice shit you didn't see the first million times. So it happens to me all the time.
When the scene with Mr. Miyagi and the pumpkins, the shower curtain is right there behind him over his right shoulder.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, what did you? So let's get into the actual the last scene, which was actually not supposed to be the last scene in this movie. It was actually supposed to end how Karate Kid 2 began. Was supposed to be the last scene of this movie, but they decided to end it the way that they did. But what did you think about like that last fight, Johnny, Danny? This is what we built up to.
Yeah, I mean, finally, it comes down to it. It's time for Johnny to get his comeuppance, and for those who don't know, in the 80s, Johnny was the perennial heel or perennial bad guy. He's a bad guy here. He's a bad guy in another flick. I can't remember. Summer School. I don't remember the name of the movie. And also, Just One of the Guys. I don't know if anyone, if you've ever seen that. It's one of my favorite movies from the 80s. But he was a bad guy in that as well. He plays the same character in all three movies, where he's just a high school kid that's bad. That's a bully. But at any rate, I thought the movie was good. Not the movie, but the fight was good, and everything building up to this was good, and the ending was great. I love the fact that Daniel beat him and then finally got Johnny's respect. You see, Johnny gave him the trophy, and he's like, "Good match, LaRusso. You're all right." So I like the whole culmination. And like you said, it was supposed to end. They were supposed to carry Daniel off. Like the crowd was supposed to carry him off and then go into how Karate Kid begun. But they thought going to Mr. Miyagi was a better ending. So yeah. What do you think? What you think would have been a better ending?
I don't know. I think that they made the right decision. I think that this was the better ending. And not that they ended it that way because they planned to do it in the sequel, because they didn't know if they were going to be able to get a sequel or not. But I really think ending it on that sign of respect. That's ultimately what I think. When you have two people who like have been at odds the whole movie and one another, it's always going to be a good message. And then Mr. Miyagi, come on now, Mr. Miyagi, he's fucking amazing. Like
he is.
He's like you said, he is. Even though Danny's in every scene, like you said, which I didn't know, Mr. Miyagi is just, even in scenes he's not in, like his teachings changed Danny so much that his presence is felt even when he's not in the scene.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, as much as this was Ralph Macchio's movie, this was Pat Morita's movie as well, definitely. He actually, the logo that Daniel had, the bonsai with the sun, Pat Morita actually designed that himself. That was his original creation. Yeah, so definitely they go hand in hand. 100% they go hand in hand.
That's what's up. But one thing that I do want to point out, we got to get into the crane kick. So finally,
yes,
should Danny had been disqualified?
Well, why? Because it was a face kick?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Because how many times throughout this movie has someone gotten hit in the face throughout the whole tournament?
True.
So, no, it is an illegal hit, though. Yeah. It is an illegal hit. So, no, but I don't know. That's a weird one. But the one thing I have to say about the crane kick is, off this movie, that's like the most recognizable thing. Like, how many TV shows have you seen where like someone's going to fight and as a mock they do the crane? I've seen that thing like 1,000 times in different movies, different TV shows, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will used to do it. So many different. I can name so many different examples. It's such this like iconic moment, and also the way the scene was done. Again, I love the way the scene was done because at this point, Daniel doesn't know what to do. He's lost 2 straight points. He won the first 2 and lost the last 2. Is on to the last point. He just got hit in the face. He's in pain. He can barely walk. He doesn't know what to do. In his head, he's like, you know what? I'm going for the crane kick. But he's still hesitant. And he looks over at Miyagi. And if you look, there's a subtle like him shaking head like, no, I don't think I should do this. And Miyagi subtly nods and is like, yeah, fucking do it.
Yeah.
And he does so again. Another beautiful piece of cinematography there.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I want to point out to you with this is there was actually an unfilmed scene in which, do you know about this one? Was
Is it the alternate ending?
Johnny put the pie in Danny's seat in the lunchroom?
No,
So,
no, I didn't.
so that would have made it more even on Johnny actually being more of an antagonist. He actually slipped pie underneath Danny's seat right before he sat down, and he got covered in blueberry pie, and so he got
At what
embarrassed that
point
way
in the
too.
film was this?
This
You
was
know?
after. This was actually in the same in the seat that Danny bought lunch for Allie. So that's how that scene was supposed to end.
I don't remember that. Okay, but yeah, I remember. This is after. This is
That
before
was
the
the first day
Halloween
of school.
stuff.
Yeah, that was the first day. It's the same scene in the first day of school. So this would have been
Gotcha.
after, when he bought lunch and after the whole soccer thing. But I just wanted to point that out. I didn't know if you knew that or not. But so they actually removed scenes in which it made Johnny seem like he was more antagonistic. I really have the writers said anything like as far as you know that they wanted Johnny for it to be able to be looked at that way, or did it just happen that way?
No, they never said anything, but I'm sure they're loving it because the fact that people are just talking about nonsense like that,
Yeah.
which it is nonsense, obviously, but there is a point to be made about it. I joke about it, but there is a strong point to be made. But I'm sure the directors are loving the fact that people are doing, talking about that.
A whole TV show built off the fact that, like, if they would have made, just imagine, if they would have made Johnny more antagonistic or more of an outright villain, where you didn't even have that crease where you can say, "Oh, well, I was just defending myself for XYZ." We wouldn't even have Cobra Kai. Just imagine that, bro.
Yeah. Also, another thing I want because you just made me remember something. Let's not forget, Johnny also is under a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
He's a senior in high school, and he doesn't have the best of friggin' teachers because Crease is just filling his head up with shit. So you can't really blame him too much. Also, do you think it's kind of crazy they didn't capitalize off of making an actual Cobra Kai dojo, like a school? Or do you think because they were portrayed so horribly, it would have been a bad idea?
It probably would have been a bad idea. And then who's to say like who would have owned the rights and XYZ? Like, yeah, no. But that's it, bro. We did it. We reviewed Karate Kid 1. We still got 3 more episodes in this retrospective to do because we're doing Karate Kid 2, Karate Kid 3, and Cobra Kai seasons 1 and 2 before season 3 debuts on Netflix. Like, good first episode. Do you want to give it a rating? Should we even rate something that's as iconic as this?
I don't think so, bro, because it's gonna be like 9s and 10s across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what will be better is if you even have one. Can you tell me what your favorite line in the movie is and your favorite scene in the movie is? I would say my favorite line is probably "sweep the leg," only because of how iconic it's become. I mean, they have shirts that say it, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. That's probably the favorite line. My favorite scene though is definitely him on the beach.
Like when he's doing the practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good scene. Probably my favorite thing in the movie. And there's a lot, but I have to say that the "You're the Best" montage, which I still feel is the best montage outside of any Rocky movie, probably ever. Forget 80s, just ever. I really really enjoyed that montage. Yeah. So I would say that's probably my best scene here.
There you go. Well, and we're not giving it a rating, so we're done this week, bro. Like I'm really excited for this series. Like I'm glad we decided to do it. It's long overdue.
Me too. And now like I kind of like I'm already like wanting to be like what's the next one? Because I love these retro movies, especially ones like this, bro. These are, and I don't know about you, but the response that I got, people were like DMing me and saying, "Oh, and tell me about different scenes." And even on our Facebook group, people were like commenting. People are like, this retro nostalgic shit people love, man. Always.
Yeah, we may have to like and think you've talked about it, like once a month. It's difficult to do like 4 episodes. Like the only reason we're able to do that now is because there are no new movies being released.
Sure.
But once we get back to business as usual, I wouldn't mind as a bonus episode doing one retro review a month.
Exactly. And we kind of talked about something like that. And there's been like movies come out so quick and so fast that you try to do all the new movies to, kind of do the new stuff. And then you kind of forget the retro. But I think now, if any, is probably a good time to start because we're not really getting new movies as much anymore. So maybe we can knock out some of those. And then when the new movies are released again, then we can go to that once a month, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for that. I'm definitely down for that. I love doing retros. That's something that, not a lot of people do retros all the time, especially like now. If this was normal before COVID, there's no way, because this would have been in the middle of summer blockbuster season. There's no way we probably could have fit something in like this. So we will, after this retrospective, make it a point to do one retro and as a bonus episode. So you still get your weekly episodes, your 4 episodes, and then we'll do it as a bonus. And it may not be as long as this one or as in depth, but we'll do retro movies once a month. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it, bro. This has been another episode of the Film Frequency Podcast. JB, go ahead and give them your social media so they can follow you.
I can be reached on Twitter at THEP1JB. That's at THEP1JB. And of course, I can be reached on Facebook, Javed Bashrula.
And you can follow me at CEO Haize, CEO Haize. You can follow us collectively at the Film Bros Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, the Film Frequency Pod at gmail.com. And lastly, the creme de la creme. Go to Facebook and type in the Film Frequency and join our Facebook group where we talk about TV and movies and this great stuff. We're going to have more content there. We may even we're starting to do some watch parties. I think we're planning to do a watch party of Karate Kid 2 with the group. So you want to be there and just be a part of that. But we were on that path before COVID, and I think stuff got us off track. But we're gonna do more live streaming to the Facebook group as a benefit of being a part of that group. So yeah, definitely check that stuff out.
Check it all out, or we will sweep the leg.
Sweep the leg. We out this bitch. Peace. That was so much fucking fun, bro.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.